Hello, beautiful human. Thanks for clicking on our conversation with Darren Criss. A lot to discuss. Please listen to his brand new music. Link in the description below. Leave your honest feedback in the comment section below. Hit like on the video. And we beg you to subscribe. Please.
Let's do this. Zach Show.
Hello, beautiful human. We got Dan here.
Are we going? We're doing this.
Yeah, we got Darren Criss here, and my name's Zach. But you just said you're nervous.
Hello.
Why are you nervous?
Well, Zach, you've done very well for yourself as an interviewer. In fact, I feel somewhat, we've never met, but I feel proud of you. You've done a really good job, and I shouldn't say I'm nervous. I'm just very excited for this, because when you think about when you do any interviews or press hits especially about music, they're not long form. These are the ones that artists look forward to, and why I think you've had such success with artists wanting to talk to you, because A, you're genuinely interested. You ask thought-provoking questions, and you give artists an opportunity to actually kind of get into the weeds of that they don't usually get to do, because when you're on a red carpet or on a talk show, it's all about sound bites, clickbait. Give me the quick thing, play this fun little game with me. Instead of like, it's surface level, which I get because it's for the hype machine, but the truth is like the majority percentage of what makes an artist is that the consumers never get to see.
Totally.
And the irony is that is, unless you're doing like a long form interview like this or some huge feature, you just don't really ever get to talk about it. So having a venue to do that is amazing. So thank you. This is great.
I really appreciate you taking the time and energy today. And also, like, I thank you for even knowing what you're getting into, because it is, that makes it more fun on our end, because, well, it makes it, talking to you is going to make it fun for a couple different reasons. One, you know what you're getting into, but two, you have such an incredible history. You've been performing from such an early age. And I mean, even what you did during college, I look forward to tapping into a little bit of all of it. Like you are proud of where you've come from, and you still rep your friends from college today. You did a show with them for Quibi. I mean, obviously performing for you starts as a child, but like, was it scary in college to start a production company / musical theater group, or did you always feel like it was exactly what you were meant to do?
Zach, you're so good at this. Starting from the heart thing, starting from like the earliest part of what you can find out about him on the internet. This is great. Thank you. This is okay. So no, I wouldn't say it's scary. If anything, I feel like it's one of the most fortunate parts about my career. I think, as you know, one of the greatest joys that you can hope for is getting to work with and celebrate the prosperity of creating stuff with your friends, with friends you really love and care about. That's like the goal, right? Yeah. And that's something that most people, when they're kind of setting out to sea on their own, they go, wouldn't it be more fun if I had all my homies from when I was a kid with me on this ship, for all the waves and storms and fun beaches we find along the way. Like, the adventures of getting to do this wacky ass life. Any life, it's like everything's only worth as much as you get to share it with. Everything is only as valuable as those you get to share it with. And so I have a lifelong addiction of, kind of sharing it with people that I really love. So in college, we just, like a lot of people, if you went to school for performing arts, you just do because it's fun. You're not doing it to turn heads, make money, or anything. It's like college sports. Like, they're just in it for the game, and hopefully one day something might happen on a professional level. But you just make it for fun, stuff for you, stuff that makes your heart sing, stuff that makes you laugh. And this was like before the ad, because you're not that much younger than me, but just young enough to where there is a divide in platform.
Totally. So
the idea of social media was not even a concept. It was just called Facebook. And it wasn't a public company. This was like a private little club. It was like Raya for college kids, right? It was just your own little fun thing that adults and kids didn't know about, only if you were in college, right? So the idea of social networks wasn't really is a thing. And YouTube was brand new. It certainly wasn't like a platform from which to gain anything in your life other than seeing really stupid internet videos. And so anyway, short story, way too long.
No.
We made this, we made all kinds of stupid shows that nobody was supposed to see except our friends. They're like dripping with inside jokes. Like, surely this is not accessible to anybody in the outside world. But our senior year, we made like a Harry Potter show that the only people who would see this are just like our friends. But we filmed it simply because we had cameras in the audience, like you would film your nephew's like Christmas pageant. Like, this is not, there's no one's mic'd. It's as amateur as it gets. And we put it on the internet like a year after the fact, simply because that was the easiest way to share it, back to my original mantra, with our friends. It wasn't supposed to be seen by anybody. It was either that or printing DVDs and snail mailing it to everybody's address. Like, that was such a pain in the ass. So.
Yeah, but that goes on to change your life, right? Like, that's your first project that like charts you on Billboard. Like, it's you and your friends, like, and weirdly, you end up like manifesting through this Harry Potter Daniel Radcliffe thing, you fulfilling his role in How to Succeed in Business years later. So like,
yeah, life is fucking wacky, man.
I mean, crazy. So Star Kids Productions, that was you and your friends. And when you're doing that in the moment, you really don't think at all that it's for anybody more than your friends, but you know it's something that you want to do forever? Or does the success of that, like that one Harry Potter play, like validate that this is something that you can do and that deserves your time? Because, I mean, come on, like there's a lot of theater students out there and not all of them really hit it. And some of them leave school afraid of what could be next.
There's so many things to be said of this. You were talking about the sort of validation. I think it did, I wouldn't say validate, but definitely got me hip to something that I hadn't really thought of before, which was like, I guess like I'm a songwriter. Because out of college, when that thing did really well, we were getting a lot of, it's amazing. I watched the success of the Ratatouille thing on TikTok, and it's sort of an exact template of what happened to us, except at the time, nobody gave a about kids getting together making their own musical from an already popular property. There was no mechanics for it to kind of move to any kind of wider audience, and people always say, well, how come you didn't do anything with it? I'm like, it exists, like there's no other world where it could have done well. It was a subcultural thing that could only exist for free for a subculture audience on the internet. But when it was starting to make the rounds in sort of nerd circles, I think between Broadway and internet, because again, there was a cognitive dissonance between like creative executives and being popular on the internet. Yeah. This was still right before that added up to dollar signs for the suits. They didn't really know what that meant quite yet. And we were also, I was 22 years old with like a hit that I couldn't show for it, because I would show up to auditions and things were, in my mind, I was living this double life where I'd come home and my computer was, I mean, you remember what this is like for you when things were really starting to pop off. You're like, oh my God, like I have all this attention from strangers that I've never met across the world. But then you go to the grocery store and you're like, you have this like secret. Nothing matters. And I guess it still is like that kind of that way in real life. But there was this definite like disparity in experience, right? So, we'd had people from Broadway hitting us up being like, who are you? Who are you guys? We want you to write our show. Like, who wrote the songs? Like, you wrote this, like, you're going to be a songwriter. And I was like, yeah, like being an actor is so torturous. I have to wait around for somebody else to decide that like I'm their guy. Acting as a career is a passive profession. And take that with a grain of salt. I didn't say the craft is passive, but like the profession is a bit passive unless you're an auteur or writing your own, where you have to kind of be someone's sort of candidate for their process, as opposed to music, which is a proactive profession. Like during the pandemic, it's no mystery that I put out music because I couldn't go to set. So guess what I did? I did been on hold. The hose has been held for like 10, 15 years. And I finally had the time to do the proactive thing, which is like, okay, well, no one can stop me from picking this up, and making stuff. So I just jumped all the way to the present. So I'll go back to where we left off, which was the Star Kids thing. But I'm not short of. You can see why I prefer the long form interviews.
No, you make my job so much easier, dude. Because a lot of people like they just like they rarely speak, or like I'm doing my job when I speak a lot less, right? Like that's. I tried to explain that to my therapist yesterday, and he understood. He very
well.
Much
I hope when it counts, you can get your word in edgewise. I don't want to get too verbose, but it is fun for me because it's like a chance to be able to talk about this.
Hey, beautiful human, every dollar counts these days, and that's why I want to tell you about the Get Upside app that allows you to get cash back for every gallon of gas you purchase. This is no joke. If you drive an SUV, a car, or any vehicle that needs gas, I want you to get cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. Nearly 3 million people have earned cash back by using the Get Upside app. It's pretty freaking easy. You go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and you download the Get Upside app. It is totally free. And when you sign up, you'll be able to see all the different brands of gas stations, BP, Exxon, whatever. You pick the one that you want to get cash back from, and then voila, you'll be able to cash out at any time. And you'll be able to get the money right to your PayPal account or in the form of a gift card for Amazon or other brands. So if you want 25 cents back, cash, for every gallon of gas you get, you got to Get Upside. It's really that easy. Go to the App Store, download the Get Upside app, and you'll be making money for filling up on gas. And because we're talking today, you're going to get an extra 25 cents back for your first gallon of gas that you fill up using Get Upside. So you get 50 cents back if you use the promo code SANG. And I'm telling you, Get Upside is for you because almost everybody needs to put gas in their car, so why not get paid for it? 25 cents cash into your pocket for every gallon of gas you purchase. All you got to do is Get Upside. Download the app today for free. We've been so inundated with 2021, 2020 success stories that we forget how some of the greatest artists of our time come to be. Because, dude, as I've gotten to, one, I've watched your work for years and years and years since Glee, but also like really doing a deep dive on your history and understanding you, you're on a path to get a mother EGOT. Like, let's call it what it is. Like, that's the truth. I mean, and I think that's like a different sort of artistry that is like, that's more than making TikTok videos and dancing. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think people need to understand that there was a different world where virality didn't come overnight. It didn't come from some algorithm that just because you use a series of hashtags, you now have a video with 2 million views, you know? Like there's stuff that's built on real craft. And I'm a theater kid, so.
You know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'll even, you know, while I worry for the lifespan of the TikTok generation, I have to, despite that, I think the second, and I don't think you're suggesting this, but I'm always down with the new, like, zeitgeist. And I have to be, because the second that I'm not is the second that I'm out the door, you know? Because as we, like, I will admit this fully, and I was like, maybe I don't want to talk about this as, you don't want to, like, put a highlight under this, but, like, I think this past year, for many of us, having lost a year, right? It's the first time I've always been the youngest guy in the room. I was always the youngest guy part of the team. I'm the youngest brother. Like, I've always felt like the young guy. And for the very first time in my life, I felt like, oh, I'm getting older. And a lot of people are like, oh, of course, Darren, like, welcome to life. But it's like, I think it has to do with the idea that, it's not that you're getting older. It's that the people who are really contributing to what is at the forefront of the zeitgeist, that number just keeps getting lower and lower. And that also didn't used to bug me when I think in your late 20s. I remember I would see people doing stuff around that age, and I'd be like, oh, it's cool. I can't believe this gal's 21 or whatever. But their experience of life that brought them to that moment was more or less the same as mine. So it wouldn't feel like there was a lot of difference between me. But when I see these kids that are 10 years younger than me that have, and not judging, a totally different thing. Like, I grew up with things that the people above me didn't grow up with. But, like, having grown up with these, it affects the way that you see and interact with the world. And so when I watch them doing TikTok videos and I go, oh, my God, this is so crazy that this is all they do, I go, well, it's not that crazy. It's no crazier than me putting up videos of, like, Disney covers on YouTube. Yes. Like, all you do, like, every generation of people who are creating, like, nobody's premeditating this. They're just kids want to, like, creative kids, they just want to create, and they want to do it with whatever means they can that's in front of them, and that's easy. You know, in the 60s, okay, we have a guitar, all right, cool, press record, and like that's it. You just do that. And then, you know, the 70s, people start having these things, and in the, you know, as new toys come in, people are just doing it because that's just what's there. And so now kids on their laptops going boom bap, SoundCloud go, changing the conversation, you know, that's cool because they're just doing what's available to them, just like I did with like putting it up on YouTube and just like doing whatever you can. So I guess what I was saying somewhat in defense of those kids is like, you know, there is hard work in all of it because it's honest, and it's just them doing what they got with the tools that just happen to be
there
on the, you know, the metaphorical lazy Susan of time, of just like, okay, I guess I'm going to use this and put it out, you know, and in the less years will be a new thing, and it'll change the conversation, and that'll be cool too. Anyway, I'll get out of my
No, it's going to change the conversation, but also it's going to change the art that we live with for years to come. And I think it's also going like, and that's what I like. Obviously, only time will tell. But what does around mean to you then? Like, if we're talking about the last year and people are going to TikTok as a means to get out there and to create, I mean, around was definitely created within the last year, right?
It was definitely finished in the last year.
Got it.
I think much like, you know, it takes a lifetime to make an overnight success. Similar again to your whole thing about, you know, these things, the roots go a lot deeper than what's on the surface.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's a long story for music. Like, I've been at it for a long time, and I've been lucky, so insanely lucky to have had a livelihood as an actor. But, you know, I've just had, you know, I was with a major label, and that was an amazing experience, and we had a great relationship. There's a lot of people that go through that machine, and it's not so fun, and they get chewed up and spat out. It's not my experience at all. I just had different priorities, you know, like I had the opportunity to do Hedwig in the Angry Inch on Broadway. I'm like, well, that's my favorite show of all time. Like, not going to say no to that. And like, okay, where's the record? I'm like, hang on. Okay, I'm going to go do this show. I'm going to do this movie. Like, and so I just never made a record. But, you know, the curse of a songwriter, I think a curse of any writer, is that you're always writing, and you can't help it. And your brain moves faster. And I'm sure this is consistent with any artist you've talked about, any songwriter you've talked to, is that at any given time, there's like a plethora in the back burner of just stuff that your body simply does not have the capacity to keep up with the pace of your brain.
But you store that in your brain, or do you store that elsewhere?
I probably should start storing it elsewhere as my brain gets older. But yeah, for the most part, it's a talent and a curse. Like, if I have an idea, I cannot let it go until something says it's over. So what happens is it's an exponential curve of you got to like get back to at some point. And again, you know, of the many things with the pandemic, as you know, the silver linings, especially for creative people, is having the time to really, and the space to kind of dive into these things. And, you know, one meditates on the things that really matter to them, like how, you know, I lost this year. What do I want to have to show for from the great pause? And one of those things was like, okay, I need to really show up for a part of myself that I feel like has not been represented in a way that I'm happy with. And again, the time ticks on, baby. And you really want to, you know, wake up in a few years and go, okay, I did it. I'm very careful with this verb because there's a lot of sociological things attached to it. And I said this to somebody the other day, and they're like, did I miss something from your song? Where I said to him last night, I was like, I just really feel like I'm being seen in a way that I have it. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, is there a message in the song? What are you not telling me? It's like, no, I don't mean like anything personal or like, because I think that verb sort of has the connotation of having been neglected or having suppressed something, especially in the climate we're in now. So please take that word with a grain of salt. But I literally mean, like, again, playing music, writing music, producing music, rocking the out, trying to get the the people going, is a massive part of my identity that my friends and family know about. But, you know, as the actor, it's something that people go, oh, that's so crazy. I had no idea you do that. So again, this is the first step on the yellow brick road of like, all right, here's the deal. Here's what I do. Here's a massive part of what makes me who I am. And it's all tied into the same kind of bag of like performance and giving people an experience, an emotional experience. Because I'm you know, I'm a communicator, and I do that through music, through performance, through, you know, acting is music, music is acting. It's all kind of the same kind of thing. But that didn't answer your question at all, which was, what does around mean to you? That's its own song, but I gave you what the putting music out means to me.
Well, because it's really fascinating, because I've listened to Human, I listened to Homework, I listened to Lost Boy's Life, I listened to all of it, but like none of those necessarily hit directly nail on the head to what you just said, right? Like, which is rocking out and wanting this side of yourself to come through. None of those songs sound anything like around or running around, whatever version you want to, you know, use. I mean, they sound different. I mean, is that correct to say? Like that there's a total sound evolution?
I wouldn't say it's an evolution. I know that's kind of the typical phraseology to employ, because I think if something's different, people, I mean, listen, everything is an evolution, so I don't want to dismantle that notion. But I guess what I'm saying is every song I've ever put out is me chasing who I was like several years ago. You know, like you're always, you have this like breadcrumb trail of ghosts, of versions of yourself that are still stuck in time, that, you know, when you have to revisit them and put them out into the birth canal of reality, they're still just that person from a while ago. So, you know, Human, by the way, all those releases, I didn't do interviews like this. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel or push to radio or be like a, like go all in on the artist thing. They were very quiet, very humble releases that were meant for, you know, myself and for the supporters that I'm lucky to have. It was for them. It's for like my mom, you know, those are very like very personal kind of parts of me that are just like, this is me messing around, you know, singer songwriter stuff. They are all the same person though. And I don't think that they're all cousins of each other. We tend to categorize sound and genre to help us associate ourselves with our experience. But I think in my world, and this is my MO in general, is as a huge genrephile, self-proclaimed genrephile, to sort of dismantle those pieces of separation, because it's all just music, it's all just storytelling, it's all just giving you some kind of emotional experience through a performance. So yeah, they sound different, but it's still me. And it's you know, I think the thing that makes this the most different is that this is the first swing I've consciously made for the fences, in the sense of like making this as widely accessible and seen as possible, where those other ones were very much, you know, croquet in the backyard.
So why is this the time to widen the reach and really swing for the fences? What makes this not different, but why?
I think it's different mostly in its output, and yes, it's different in sound. I reached a point where I just thought, you know, again, like how do I want to be seen in the world? And I really had this desire to make the musician thing be synonymous with myself as like a performer, as an artist. And that was really important to me. And I think I took a big sort of first step at that with that Quibi show, which had its own sort of life, and we can get into that later. But as a songwriter and as a person who creates, that was really kind of the goal, to let people know that's what I come at this whole game from, is a sort of overall kind of creator and curator of ideas. So the artist is a huge branch of that tree that I felt like wasn't being represented in a way that I felt was really true to who I am. So yeah, here I am. Well, actually, tell you what, this is what I wanted to say, and like I said, this is why I like these long form interviews. I'm an actor. People know me as an actor, and I don't believe it's very helpful to run away from yourself. I think if anything has taught us, if pop culture has taught us anything the past few years, you know, embracing that which you are and running towards what you are known for is only helpful for everybody, the artists included.
Yeah.
So I go, all right, I'm an actor. What does that mean to a lot of people? Well, it's taking on different roles, and it's weird. It's kind of this. It's the opposite of being like a musical artist, where it's like being a musical artist is being true to yourself, be who you are. Whereas an actor is like, be somebody else. Like, how good are you at being somebody else? So I was like, if I need to play with that paradigm, I would say, okay, I'm gonna release characters. I'm gonna release these character songs, okay? Because you don't go like, hey, Pandora, play Jack Nicholson. Because that'll be a really weird party, because it'll start with The Shining, and then it'll be like As Good as It Gets, and then it'll be like, you know, A Few Good Men. Okay. And like there'll be, these are completely different genres, right? You have horror, drama, courtroom, and those are all distinctively Jack Nicholson. And so I was like, okay, so that's kind of unfair that we can let actors do this, but for artists, we need to categorize them into a genre. So I was like, you know what? I'm an actor that is going to play the part of this guy for a while. He's going to be the rock. This is some rocking the out. And just you wait for the next few singles. They ain't the same.
So is it going to be different characters on one body of work, or does each character get an album?
I don't know. And I wish I could say I was being coy. I mean, because I've never put out a full-length studio album, like, ever.
Yeah, everything's been EPs that I've heard. Like, they've been like tiny bodies of work, but they do tell a story. You know, each one tells a different story.
Yeah, I think the main reason for that, honestly, is less artistic and more logistical, which is I was shooting stuff. I didn't have the time or the resources to make a full-length thing. You're shooting stuff, and most of those things I put out while I was juggling all these other things. So what's cool about where we are now as opposed to 10 years ago, I keep talking about how like all this is like finding the hoses released after 10 years, is that we're now in a climate that is much more serviceable for my sort of disposition than it was when I started, which is you can just put out like nobody gives a anymore. Yeah, it's just like we say, you know how like, I don't know if your parents say this, but like how parents will I think maybe they don't do this anymore, but for the past like 10 years, like if you do music, oh, do you have a new CD coming out? Yeah. Like, oh, I heard the new CD. And our generation goes like, oh, well, you know, they don't really make CDs anymore. But by CD, they mean body of work.
Yes.
Nowadays, people say, oh, do you have a new album coming out? Which is less about an album and more about what's your new body of work. Because people aren't really releasing albums. I mean, you know, we have, people like Ariana, Justin, because they're part of, they're massive world artists. And so they can kind of fall into a more, traditional release system. But for guys like me, the idea of releasing singles just whenever just doing your own thing, I couldn't do that 10 years ago, but I can do that now, and it's totally freeing. It democratizes the process. It totally just lets you reset every time, as opposed to when people just had to reset every album, redefine, reshape every few years, get the new tour, the new look, the new album cover, the new press rollout. Like, I can do that every time I release a single, and that is so healthy for dudes like me that just need to like have a new thing constantly. So yes, maybe it'll end up being part of a full body of work, but like, what does that mean? Is that an EP? Is that an album? I don't know. It's like, even if I released 20 singles and it wasn't an album, like,
but it's still body of work.
It's a body of work, right? It's the CD.
Yeah, 100%, just spread out.
Are these characters that you're writing these songs after or for, are they characters that you're basing off characters you've played in the past? Or are these things you're completely making up now as you go?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I was joking when Around came out. I was like, if I really wanted to be a media whore, I should have come out of the gate and just named a member of Glee and said it was about one of them. It's like, just like, let's do a Olivia, Sabrina thing and just make something up and see how because then the tabloids will pick it up. But I just don't play like that, as funny as it would be. So, I think when anybody writes like, let's take it back to, we were talking about the validation of something as silly as the Harry Potter musical, right? This was the first time I realized, like, okay, I can write for narrative. Whether I'm good at it or not is a whole other discussion, but it's something that I feel comfortable with. Like, I admire, idolize, dare I say, I'm envious of the ability of all of our favorite singer-songwriters that can put their heart on the chopping block for us to experience their thing. Of course, you think of Taylor, more recently Olivia. For me, it's like Rufus Wainwright, Gordon Lightfoot, James Taylor, a lot of these people that put their lives on the line, and there is a vulnerability of that, which is so moving. And I've always gravitated towards those people, but I reached a certain point where it's like I don't have access to that, and sometimes I do, but I guess you when you're younger, you kind of beat yourself up about the things you can't do. But with a little bit of wisdom, you start honing and shaping and sanding the things that you can do and embracing them to help elevate, you to being something hopefully unique. And that's kind of the corner I turned around, which was, okay, I can take on, it's like even when you're playing in a band, like you're, front men and women are playing the part of the rock star. Like you're rising to this occasion. Ask any of the artists that you play. It's like that you interview. It's like there's Justin Bieber, the dude, and there's Justin Bieber, the guy with the mic. Like it's a character. You're kind of you're rising to the occasion of what your followers have kind of built. 100%. So having said that, as soon as I started thinking about the songs that I hadn't finished, as less of like opening up my like soul and heart for you to come in, and more of like a playwright and like taking them out and treating them as these objective things, it became a very prolific time for me where I started like writing them again as a screenwriter, as a playwright. And when you're creating those characters, they're not like disingenuine, like you're making them up and, oh, he didn't actually experience this. Of course they're from experiences that I've had. Are they specific experiences that just happened with some person that Maybe not, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because if somebody hears it and identifies with it in a way that is personal to them, then that's the name of the game. Done my job. Exactly. So here's the secret, guys, that I'll let you in on the Zach Sang show. All songs are character driven. That's like it's sort of
just
a
who the
redundant
character
sentence.
is, right? Like
exactly.
And Sam Smith is an amazing example. They wrote an entire album based on their life, and then they ended up writing an entire album based on other people's lives. Like just hearing other people's stories, like the seed of a story, and then turning it into this giant tree.
Right.
But not all of it came from their experience. It is very common. It takes a different skill, though. I mean, some artists will say that that's way harder because it takes a level of imagination and like empathy to a certain degree, where you need to, I don't know, like you need to feel and be in situations that you weren't in. But playwrights can do that.
I should say actors do that. Like I am in the business of empathy. That is my job. That is my livelihood, and that is my palette. Like of all the colors that I paint with, it's like empathy is usually the biggest one, and that's kind of the guiding light for everything that I do. For better or for worse, as an actor, as a songwriter, as a performer. You always want to figure out how this can relate to other people in some kind of accessible way. Like I could be talking about my latest acting project right now. It's like those mechanics are all the same. People always ask, "Oh, do you consider yourself an actor or a musician?" I'm just like, dude, it's all the same. It's all empathy. It's all communication. It's all trying to get something through that.
Being an actor makes you a better musician, I believe. Yes.
I think they service each other in a very symbiotic way. And just really quickly about this character-driven thing, it's amazing how wording can just help people along. When I said the secret is that all songs are character-driven, I say it because I want to keep people into the idea that somehow that word someone lets people's heads wrap around the idea of the actor doing music just a little easier. So that's why I said that. But I think they live in symbiosis with each other, because when I look at dialogue, I'm composing. Words have cadence, timing, emphasis of the syllables, and it's just like you take a great standard, take a great Gershwin, Cole Porter song. Why are there hundreds of thousands of recordings of this? Well, because you can sing in about a million different combinations of dynamics. You have male vocalists, female vocalists, you have up-tempo, mid-tempo, down-tempo, you have different time signatures, you have different keys, you have different instrumentations. There are infinite ways to make a thing work. And so I think if you're a musician, you can treat that with scenes and communications and dialogue. And on the flip side of that, when you're playing music, you can act that music. You can dig into the dynamics on the piano or guitar in the way that an actor can reconsider, what people think they know. And that, I have to say, is my number one MO through all this, is always constantly trying to help people reconsider that which they think they know about myself, about themselves, about genre, about all of it.
Damn.
Anyway, see ya.
With everything you just said, was Glee like the perfect role for you because it combines everything you're talking about?
Yeah, it was kind of like Slumdog Millionaire moment, where, and if you don't know that movie, I'll explain myself.
So.
So in Slumdog Millionaire, the kind of conceit is that he had all these life experiences that just so happened to serendipitously match up with all the answers that he had to show up for, right? So for me, like, I spent my entire life studying, like preparing, and my time on Glee I associate with, if you get your name on the door at a law firm and someone says, "Oh man, can you believe it? Can you believe it that you made it here?" And you go, "Well, let me think about it. Like, I spent a ton of time in school reading all those books, doing all those things, stay up late. I did all these things for years and years and years and years. So like, yeah, I think idiomatically, sure, it's unbelievable, but like, no, I worked for that. Like, I can believe it. So
Totally.
What I couldn't believe was the fortune of a job like that even existing. And I was very lucky to get cast, but it employed all these things that almost like comically fit in to all the things that I did. I mean, before I was on Glee, I was playing pop songs twice a week at a restaurant on guitar and piano, where they'd be like, "Do you know this huge song?" I'd be like, "Yeah," and I have to learn it. And it's like the 10,000 hour rule. Like, I'm not saying I did it for 10,000, but I did it for a load of time, just playing other people's songs. It's like when, Picasso, and I'm not Picasso. I'm just giving an example of practicing stuff that other people do. Like, they had the greats like paint landscapes by other artists for years before they start doing their own thing. And so there's something to be said of spending that much time knowing, understanding, loving the dynamics of how to play those songs, how they're sung. And then I was on a show where I was doing that on a weekly basis for 6 years. It's like, it's insane that's what I ended up doing.
Darren, people thought that your version of Teenage Dream was better than the original, elevated the record. It was given A+ by every review that I looked at, which was a bunch. I mean, that was what do you sound surprised? I mean,
no, I was like, there's reviews,
yeah,
of that song. That was my reaction.
I don't know. I don't know what world you lived in, but Glee was like the biggest around town. I mean,
yeah.
Going to Hot Topics. I mean, it was like, life changer.
I had a very strange. Well, first of all, while I appreciate that, I vehemently disagree, simply because I love the original song. And when it is on the radio, if I'm with a friend, they go, "Oh, do you want me to turn it off?" I'm like, "No, turn it up. This song rules, man. Are you kidding me? I never get sick of that song. I love it. It's not like I wrote it. Like, I have such an objective relationship with not only myself, but particularly with things like Glee, where Glee was a massive hit before I was on it, right? I didn't grow up with it. So I always kind of had a bird's eye view of like, I can't believe I'm on Glee. Can you believe this? And then, same with Teenage Dream was a massive hit before I had anything to do with it. So I had this very like, oh my God, what relationship with all of it the entire time. I wish I could say it was my version. It's not. It's an arrangement by the Beelzebubs, the a cappella group. And I just cut vocals on top of it. I did get to, spend a lot of time on that vocal, more so than I had on any other song. They even let me help with comping the vocals, just because it was the first song that I ever did. Once I joined the show, you're in and out of there in an hour. This is a whole other interview, but yeah, that one, because I was new, I wasn't sure how long I was going to be on the show. I recorded it with a different producer in a different city, and we kind of spent time on it on its own, like it was its own record we were putting out. So it has a little bit of extra TLC that maybe is, something to be said of that. But I love that version. I mean, it's again, that's all credit to the Beelzebubs, and like classic college acapella. Yeah, what could I say? I love that song. I forget what your question was. I just got excited about Teenage Drink.
I wanted to know if you agreed with them and that your version was better than the original, but I think the answer is no.
I would say no, but I feel like that's also my duty to say that, because I do want to throw credit to where it's deserved on the people that made it, and they did a kick-ass version. But that first song, it's apples and oranges, man. Like no version is better than another one. Like, one is an a cappella version on a TV show sung by a bunch of dudes, and the other is a mega Goliath pop song sung by one of like the great pop vocalists. It's like, what do we? This is not the same category.
What do you learn from playing all those songs over and over again on piano, covering all those records that you've taken with you into your own music? Because you do learn things like from whether it be the formation of how a record flows, or, I mean, you embodied those songs, and you kind of you have to essentially tear them apart to build them back up again. No, like you have to learn them before you perform.
Yeah, I think people are always. This is a longer like music theory discussion, but I think one of the value of, again, to use the not the metaphor, but the story about painters, old painters having to paint the old things, is that it gives you a really good sense of composition. And it gives you a good sense of what works, right? Or what has worked. I always think when you have disruptors in the industry, people who really stick out and do something new, we can mention 100, just, it's usually because there are people who have grown up with knowing how things are done very well, and they consciously decide to not do that because they know the way it's supposed to go. This is a very valuable tool. I think the people that kind of come out with weird, that don't know where it came from, like, that can make some noise, but the lifespan of that is very short. Yes. Because it is a flash in the pan kind of thing. I think the real artists have to know where everything came from. It's like knowing your history. If you want to go forward, you got to know what came before you. Amen. So with music on a much smaller scale here, we're talking about me playing Baggiatos, but you start to really understand composition and song and popular song form and what works through the ages, and harmonically where things go, where this song gets interesting, this song is beloved because it goes here, and this is a common trope, and you start to understand what you gravitate towards, what you like. I like it when music does this, or I don't really this, but when I do this, I feel like this really sits well for my voice. And so you start employing that in your own thing. I mean, singers do this all the time. All singers and all artists are an amalgam of like their favorite 5 artists. Cheers. It's like, I always say, like, one of my favorite bands growing up, and still is a band called Fan of Planet. Lead singer is Alex Greenwald. My voice is a failed attempt at trying to sound like Rufus Wainwright, Paul McCartney, and Alex Greenwald. But in doing so, in failing gloriously, I sound like myself. Yes. I have my own thing. But we're all just like trying to be our heroes and failing, which is, I think, the best way to just be the best version of yourself. Like, I reached like all the people that I look up to that I wish I could be like, another corner I turned around of a few years ago was like, I will never be my heroes, but my heroes will never be me. So that's a very encouraging sentiment,
but it takes a while to get there.
I was gonna say, what are those other bands that you say you would put in that category? You said there's 5 bands or artists that represent a single artist.
It's tough because I think, especially for people who are, music journalists, there's a huge difference between influence and inspiration. People be like, oh, what inspired you to make this record? And you're like, well, do you want me to say, what you're asking me is, you want me to say, what does this what artists does this album sound like? Because we go back to that old thing about people needing to categorize things so they can put it in a box so they can understand it better. Like, you know, like if I'm being honest, like my biggest influences are like, you know, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken.
Awesome.
Like, you know, Howard Ashman being the number one like inspiration. I don't know, Spoon, Max Martin. You know, these are all people that are like wildly different from each other. But I also just named 3 Goliath, like, well, yeah, Spoon being like a cool indie band, but like those are all like, everything is inspiring, guys. That's the thing. If you are a creator, you find inspiration everywhere, despite yourself. This thing. Look at this. This is like AirPods. Look at the design on this. This was thought out by so many smart people. Like there is inspiration everywhere. So it just, I don't know. I think influence really is kind of dictated what was popping off between the ages of like 12 to like 22. Like the most fertile ground for inspiration that like even the dumbest, if it hit you at the right moment in that period of time, that's bulletproof for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it sticks with you, dude. Sponge phase, baby. Sponge phase.
Yeah. Sponge phase is a good phase for sure. And now all these songs I'm putting out are just like me trying to honor, you know, SpongeBob Darren from like 10 years ago, you know?
So how does a record like F***ing Around start, right? If it's a song that's not necessarily ripped from your soul, but a song that a narrative that you created, maybe not out of thin air, but how does it start?
You know what? It may not be ripped from my soul, but I inject my soul into it. I put my soul into it. I make a paper mache thing that is external, and then I jump the into it. You know, so that's kind of that's a new one I'm going to steal for future interviews. Thank you for that tee up. So how does it start? Well, you know, there's this age-old question people always have for songwriters, which is, what comes first, the music or the lyrics? And it's a good question, because it is different every time. This is definitely an example of like musician Darren just having fun. You know, the idea was to just, I mean, it's the most bonehead groove ever. It's a modular groove it's a loop, right? And my idea was like, you know, when people are learning the bass or the guitar and they learn like a really simple thing, they stay in one string. If you're a Green Day fan, you do, you know, right? Brain stew. And it's just one string on the E. So it's like, okay, if I was going to let people like who are playing bass for the first time learn a groove, I would do just an open E thing. Like it's just on the E string. It's a C, you know, C sharp minor, B, C sharp minor, E, C sharp minor. And it's like very basic. But the great thing about building grooves is, like back to what I was saying earlier about dynamics and the infinite ways you can make something interesting. It's how you build things around it. So I had this kind of bonehead. I played the video of it somewhere where I was playing drums over it. I could go over there and play it right now, but I don't think the sound will pick it up.
So are you producing this record in the room? Because I know that you're an incredible musician. You did 15 years of violin. You play a bunch of other instruments. Like, it's really crazy. Like, it's like you have to be a genius, I think. You probably are.
I think you're just kind of you hack away. Like, you know, I'm a gypsy man. You're just kind of hacking away. Like, I have a crippling inferiority complex about my musicianship because all of my musician friends are like freaks of nature. All the guys I hang out with, I would do anything to be able to do what they do. So while I appreciate you saying that, I have just enough hack knowledge and just enough that I don't know that can kind of keep me in that place, which I was talking about, which is like trying to keep it simple but effective.
Yes. So are you playing this in the room for people? Like, are you in the studio, like around like this?
Yeah. I mean, this is actually, I'd love to talk about this. There's a guy by the name of CJ Barron who is the big midwife for this song and for a lot of the songs that may or may not be coming out. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. CJ and I met when I was working on that Quibi show Royalties, which I hope one day people can see. I think Roku bought Quibi, so hopefully at some point in the near future you'd be able to see the show. But you know, I wrote a song for every single episode in a different genre because it's about songwriters who have to, you know, every episode is them meeting a different artist that need a different song. So, you know, we're writing crazy K-pop stuff to like hip hop, and they're all satirical, but they're very much in the vein. And, you know, I keep talking about being a genrephile, you know, being able to do these different songs with this one guy. I was like, your brain, like we have the same desire of output, and you have a really good way of understanding what I do. So it was during the pandemic where I called CJ and I was like, that was really fun making royalties. You know, would you be interested in helping me birth a few of my brain children? And he did. So for, you know, it's him and me in the studio playing instruments and just recording everything.
Just the two of you, super safe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you f up or you make a mistake, you feel comfortable. You feel comfortable sharing exactly what's on your mind.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, again, you're just having fun. I mean, this is a track that is, you know, kind of like a bonehead groove. You know, I have a video of us somewhere just going ape when we found like the greatest, like, you know, like drum fill ever, which is in the bridge of the song. And, you know, it's just us guys having fun. I mean, you know, these days, I think people who don't understand the way music production works, you know, I'm a musician and I can, you know, I can play that stuff live if I needed to. But nowadays, especially during a pandemic, you know, you don't need a full you know, $100,000 studio and time and all the instruments and the mic setup. It's like, it's all on the laptop, man. Like this is all us boom bapping on the laptop, and you know, getting the right sounds. And so, you know, we bring our musicianship, our analog musicianship, to the digital world, which is what a lot of producers do these days. But yeah, it's just the two of us mucking around on Logic.
Dude, safe space. That's like, I mean, it's scary to be vulnerable and create art, you know, no matter what the tone of the record's going to be, you know. You're still sharing ideas that could be turned down, and you know that room is so it's like so it's like a sanctuary, like it, you know.
Yeah, I guess, you know, that's a very sweet way to look at it. I never thought about it that way. I guess you know why that's never occurred to me is because this is an indie record, you know. No one asked me to make that call. Nobody said, hey, I've got this guy, you know, I hope you guys can get together, get to know each other. And that is the very vulnerable part of it, where if you're a big artist and you're meeting somebody new, somebody is this sort of
facilitating that too.
Yes, and you have to open yourself up to somebody in a way that you're like, okay, like not only are we making a child together, but like we have to kind of get to know each other along the way. And it's a bit like a, you know, a blind date or arranged marriage, you know, where you're kind of figuring it out as you go. But what's so great about this process is I called somebody that I'm already close with, that I care about, that I know cares about me, that has the same, you know, hopes and dreams and taste. Let's not forget that big qualifier. And we, you know, it's just fun. It was a pleasure to be able to do this and have the time, because, you know, neither of us had. He had a show. He has a wonderful show in Los Angeles. I highly recommend for you guys to see when it opens up again, called Cages, downtown, that he wrote. He's in. We both write musicals, and so again, yeah, I was doing a play in New York. He was doing a play here, and of course those were shut down. So we had the time. So yeah, it wasn't this kind of like vulnerable experience. It was just a joy to finally do right by all these ghosts that I've left behind over the years, and kind of push them into your ears.
Is music the solo music, something you put more of a focus on now moving forward because you got the time during quarantine to focus on? You're like, oh, well, I should continue with this. I'm enjoying it.
Well, what's nice about these single releases, we'll kind of, you know, like all of us, we're just kind of seeing where the weather vane points. You know, you can kind of feel how everybody is reacting to things. So I don't know, I'm kind of playing it by ear, but that's a luxury and that's a privilege to be able to do that, because I don't have anything coming up on the acting front. So if that's where it goes, that would be great. I mean, you know, I was also very, 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 very fortunate to have the last big acting thing I did had a really good run. So in a way, I feel almost exonerated from chasing that dragon. You know, I'm okay. Like I cashed, you know, I was in the acting casino, which is a tricky gamble, right? You know, you don't know what you're going to get there. You have a lot to lose, lots at stake. you never know if something's going to work, if you're going to have a good hand. And I had a really good hand. And so I kind of cashed my chips and decided to invest it all in the music casino and see how much I could lose or gain there. So, so in a way, yes, I think. I don't know. We'll see. But certainly right now, I do feel like this is the first time, we did a video for James Corden. And what's cool, I'm sure you guys have noticed, is that all these late night shows, are giving license to artists to like make music videos. It's not just like plug and play. And it is really cool. And there is a performative element. We have live pieces of it, but it's essentially shot like a music video. And after we had to do this in a fever dream, it's like they told us on a Wednesday, I had to shoot on a Friday, I had to get a group together in under 24 hours. It was incredibly stressful. But when I was watching it, I was like, I feel like this is a debut in many ways for me, for people that can see this side of me that I started this interview with, which is, it's just such a huge part of my identity that I'm like, that's me. That's like, let them know. So if people are into that, then you're goddamn right, I'm going to keep going with this because it's something that's been on hold for long enough. And, as the troublesome head, evil head of you're getting older kind of creeps over the horizon, continues to be a force. I want to kind of like say F you to that thing and go, let's just do my thing and not let anything get in the way of that anymore.
Damn. So you call all the shots here. You are the label executive. You are the A&R. You're everything.
Well, I will say, I think what we're asking is, are you calling the shots? Yes. I mean, I don't want to discredit the people who are helping me. It takes a village, man. It takes a village.
But you are,
yes.
There's no label. There's no bank giving you money. It's you.
Yes and no. I mean, that's a more tricky question. I mean, I'll put it this way. Like, we put out things like merch bundles, and I had I had a fun Zoom with a lot of the supporters and fans who have basically, for lack of a better corporate term, but Kickstarted. We didn't use Kickstarter, but like crowdfunded in a way where we're me and my manager are like coming up with merch ideas and putting on that elbow grease. I mean, like, okay, like we have to raise money to make this. So like, what can we do? And we have these bundles, and I'm very transparent with fans and supporters. Where I'm like, I'm not just like hawking T-shirts. Like, thank you for purchasing these things because this does help us make the very thing that you're asking me to make. So yes, there's a ton of help, and there is a team, of course. But like I mentioned earlier, I think the largest part of the artist is the thing you don't see, which is that being on the phone and like having a certain vision and a way to execute things, and being a curator, like I said, being able to curate that team to execute said vision, and trying to maximize all these. Being an artist is a logistical nightmare. Like, it's not just some magical thing where I mean, at its best, yes, it's the purest form of like, a girl with her guitar and putting on the internet. Like, that's the best. When that happens, it's wonderful, and that does happen, and it's great. But the sustainability of that is a pain in the ass, and you got to have the wherewithal and the understanding of getting all those pieces together. And so that has been probably the biggest part of my life in the past year. And it has been me calling all the shots. Not saying that I'm like making the right shots, but I'm definitely doing my best over here to call that. And that is a joy because I can go, this is the song that I want to do. Around is a song that I've started, a while ago, right? And I've sat around with it, and like no one was really ever interested in it. And that's not to say that like, people didn't believe in me. It's like, no, it's just for whatever reason, it just didn't catch on. But I believe that there was something to it enough to where I said, okay, here's the deal. We're doing this now. And everyone's like, all right, cool. So I think it's having the gumption to believe enough in something in yourself to push it forward and getting other people to get behind you. So that's been, yes, to answer your question, I have been calling the shots, and God almighty, I hope they're the right shots.
Dude, it takes a lot for that gumption to build up, for you to have that confidence to be able to make those calls. I mean, this is awesome. Yeah. I'm very excited.
Well,
thanks, guys.
We touched on obviously everything you've accomplished, but do you almost feel like this is a reintroduction? Like you're saying, hey, world, here's Darren Criss. Like, me, but here's me.
100%. Yeah. You know, I'm going to bring it back to musical theater. Zach, you'll love this. I'm a dear friend of mine, my college roommate, Broadway actor. He did the tour of Wicked for many years, and he's done it on Broadway. And I remember asking him, like, you've done this show. Like I was with him after he crossed his 1,000th performance mark. And I was like, bro, like, and it's okay. Now he has a Grammy and he's doing well. He's doing Itai Ben Shlomo, now known as Itai Benson. He did the band's visit. Huge shout out to Itai. I love you, man. Itai was Itai. Sorry, I'm getting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. I was like, how do you do this? And he was like, you know what, man, you have to realize that every night, 70 to 80% of the audience hasn't seen Wicked before. Ever before. So it doesn't matter, if you're lucky enough to get to keep doing a thing, you have to understand that every given moment, a new person is coming through being like, what's the deal with this? Who's this guy? What's this about? What's this story? Even if you're Ariana or Taylor, it doesn't matter. There is still a new person that went, I never really like checked out there. Okay, let me listen to it. And then that is their new opportunity. So while I'm saying it's a reintroduction, I'm assuming that enough people know about me to hopefully redefine the way they know me. But the truth is, I'm also just trying to stick my hand out high enough for people that don't even know what my deal is to notice. So in a way, it is a debut. It's not a reinvention. It's that dream where you're trying to get to that thing, that party, and your legs don't work. Like, my legs just started to work, and I just got to the party, and I'm letting them know I'm here. Where's my drink?
Do you have like a release schedule ready to go? Like, do you have like a calendar and songs plotted out of what you want to do, or are you taking it one by one?
Absolutely not. I have no idea what my plan is.
I don't know. Yeah, bull squash.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're just we're keeping it coy I just talked about the people that don't know much. For the people that do know much, I'm being coy. But yes, the answer is yes. I know what I want to do, and I think that there's absolutely a plan, and there are more songs coming.
Amazing.
And I'm really excited about those. And I can't thank you guys enough to even have this like venue to talk.
Well, yeah, and I'm really interested, like, as you release these singles, each single tells a different story, or do you want to be able to look back at your release after, like, however you release, whether it's over a few months or an album or whatever, no pressure on how it comes out. Do you want to be able to look back and, like, hear that these records are connected to one another, or do you want them to be standalone pieces?
That used to concern me. I think it's... people make the connections they'll make, regardless. If I set out a treasure map and said, okay, here's A, B, C, D, and E, you just got to assume most people aren't going to know I put out a treasure map. That on when they're in the CVS or they hear it at a thing, or they're like on their way to see another artist at the music festival and they catch my thing, they don't know. So you have to assume that context goes out the window. Like, what does the song do on its own, right? We're nerds. We go online and look up the story behind the song. We are a minority of the consumer population, totally. Right? Like, it's not like, again, and this isn't a bad thing. People that consume most music, it's a passive thing. It's like, oh, it's just this thing that's out there. So if I honor that, and if I'm aware of that sort of interaction that a lot of people have, I just want to make them cool. Like, you feel music before you hear it. And that's a David Byrne quote. I can't say that I made that up. But you just want to give an individual experience, just like a movie, or a play. It's like, what was your experience in that moment for that thing? And then you can put that in whatever compartment you need to help you, live your life, and then experience the other one. I mean, inevitably there is a thread. It's me, Darren, that's my thing. And it's my voice. And I manipulate my voice a little differently in some of the songs, but it's still my voice. It's just like when any artist puts out a certain kind of song that is maybe different than what you're used to. Well, it's still them. It's still their voice. It's their literal and figurative voice. So that is the inevitable tissue that you can tie between it. Like Daniel Day-Lewis, one of the greatest living actors, like, there's Lincoln and There Will Be Blood. Like, still Daniel Day-Lewis.
Totally.
You know?
Is
So
is this the greatest challenge you've taken on so far in your career?
that's a relative term. I wouldn't say it's, I mean, I don't know. Maybe time will tell. I don't know. Like, what is the challenge? Like, is it proving to myself? Is it proving it to other people? Is it proving it to people that don't know who I am? Like, I don't really know what I'm up against. I just know that I had the time to like build an army. I've gathered the resources. I got the ore. I got the lumber. I have the strategists. We're ready to go, and we're firing off. But I don't know if I'm firing at like, a small army of 5 or Mount Dune.
What motivates the genuine want though? Because like I brought up the EGOT before, and I know that like that may be a joke, but I meant it seriously. Like, you're uniquely positioned. You already have 2 out of like the 5 you need. I think EGOT, 2 out of the 4. You have a Golden Globe and an Emmy. You only have 1.
The G is not the Golden Globe. That's the Grammy.
Oh, sorry. So you have
all
1.
Good.
But by the way, that makes more sense. Yeah, we want the Grammy instead of the Golden Globe. No offense, you have a Golden Globe. I don't want to hate on the trophy you have.
No, it's fun.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't believe I have those.
But you are uniquely positioned. Like, you have the skill set to actually grab all of it. Does that ever creep into your mind?
You look. Of course, I think people have put that into my mind. And so I'm not going to sit here and like pretend like, oh, like I don't know about that. Like, I mean, sure, that's cool, but like the second you make that the goal is the second you start going down a very dark path, because then you start, holding yourself to some level of fulfillment that I think is a false representation of what can be fulfilling. And that's a privileged thing to say because I have one of them. I think if you ever get in a position where you're nominated for a certain award, I feel like it can be haunting, because then you're like, I was so close. Like it's like this thing you need to finish. You have unfinished business. To me, the trophies are, that's its own talk show. That's its own discussion about the politics and the bureaucracy of those things, for better or for worse. But for me, I think, I don't really have control over those things, right? Those have to do with a much larger algorithm of like cultural zeitgeist, where people's feelings are at, like where you kind of fit in the unpredictable chaos of people's feelings of what's cool or not. What I am in control of is what I can make and put out. Like, that's all I can control. So in that sense, like, that's the goal, right? Like, there is a much more higher likelihood of me being able to put something out, which I have not done to a level that I have thought was, worth a much larger group of people's time and attention. And I'm flattering myself saying that. There's a higher likelihood of me putting something out in that field than there is of, a trophy coming my way. So that first thing is the thing that is driving me to keep going, because, I'm going to wake up one day and go, did I get it all done? Like, I'm constantly haunted, by the ghosts and the breadcrumbs I keep talking about that are behind me. And, it gets to a point, if I don't honor them and have them come out in the world, and suddenly I'm 70 years old, and you multiply the ones that are haunting me now by those decades, I'm going to go mad. So I have to, for my own sanity, put them out into the world so they don't just live here, they can live somewhere else. So that is the driving force.
Around, link in the description below. You must listen. Daniel Zolot, final thoughts.
I mean, I just think you're very well spoken, very articulate, and very fascinating.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thank you for giving me the venue to talk about that. I mean, dude, the things that I have to say are the same things with the music. It's like it's been on hold, so she got words.
Hell yeah. And by the way, you do hover on a very different intellectual frequency that I mean, clearly you are, dude. Writers are very smart people who can write any sort of dialogue, whether it be in a song or a play or a show. I mean, that, like, it takes somebody who is incredibly intelligent. and you just happen to write in all different facets of culture and medium. I think it's very, very, very cool.
I appreciate that, guys. It's mostly smoke and mirrors. It's just to distract you from my uncertainty and and again, my crippling inferiority complex. But again, it's just thank you for letting me. I'm overly verbose, much to my own demise a lot of the time. So thank you for being receptive and for listening, because this does mean a lot to me. I think when I released the song, I didn't realize how personal it was. Like, the song is like a silly song. It's just something for you to bop to, stick your middle finger up to people that have pissed you off and feel good about that. Like, that's it. Like, if you want, like, we're talking about all this heady shit, right? At the end of the day, let's look at the primary colors. Let's look at the common denominators, the simple things that it boils down to. Does it make you feel something? Does that make you feel good? Like, if that's what we can do, that's all I really care about. All my diatribes aside. So once I released this, I was just like, damn, I didn't realize how personal this was to, like, share this. So, this is an extension of that, of that feeling. So thank you for giving me your time and attention, man.
Anytime. Thank you for giving us your energy today. Really appreciate you, and thank you for sharing your art. Get around, listen to it. Link in the description below. Darren Criss, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Hey, beautiful human. Thanks for watching our full interview, but I get it. Like, a full interview is a lot. So we got a clips channel. We don't expect you to watch the full thing anymore, so we just gave you the highlights. Please subscribe and notifications and all that stuff. Okay, cool. I love you.